Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Why are you in my house, Steve? Anyway, we talk a lot about demilitarization on this channel, especially regarding the New Republic and Old Republic's military policy. We talk about how the Russo Reformation 1,000 years before the Clone Wars led to a lack of security in the Outer Rim, which ultimately caused a series of events to happen which led to the Clone Wars and then led the Republic to its downfall. The same concept of demilitarization was brought up during the Galactic Concordance Treaty, which signaled the end of the Galactic Civil War, and it'd be kind of a pervasive message that the New Republic was trying to spread in the very early years of its foundation, and that, of course, would ultimately lead to it being unprepared for the First Order threat. We generally view the policy of demilitarization in a negative light. Not because I'm a warmonger, if anything, I'm a lovemonger, or a fishmonger, which is another acceptable use of the word monger. We've basically taken a look at our viewpoint on demilitarization, and in the spirit of being more nuanced and balanced and analytical with our opinions, we've decided to look at the upsides of demilitarization because there clearly are some upsides. That's why the New Republic and Old Republic both adopted these strategies. So what is the difference between the republics and the empire? Well, aside from the fact that the republics were run as democratic republics with representatives from each member state, the republics also featured a relatively open and free market, whereas the empire featured a military-first controlled economy. The republics are actually far less regulated. They even have free trade zones that encourage economic growth in areas where they might not be, because it's too remote or dangerous to go there. The empire is all about nationalizing resources, supply chains, and manufacturing, which provides a large amount of military material for wholesale prices. In the empire, the military is the primary driver of employment, economic growth, and death, and a huge majority of the civilian populace are all somewhat dependent on either the military or the military-industrial complex for jobs. There's a reason why Emperor Palpatine pushed for this type of control over the economy, along with seizing control of the banking systems and essentially giving himself the power to print money. The Galactic Republic during his rule simply was not able to afford the massive costs to field a federal military force large enough to protect the entire galaxy. We have to really disconnect from our current understanding of what a nation or a state is. I mean, the Empire was not just a one-continent entity here. It spans the length and width of a good portion of the entire galaxy. Even at the height of the Imperial military's power, they still weren't able to defend every system. At best, they would have a small quick reaction force posted at a hyperspace junction in a nearby sector. This is what led to the Death Star situation. It was a solution to the problem of having too many planets to control. Instead of just having a physical presence on every planet, the Empire decided to use Alderaan as an example to kind of scare everyone into line. They unfortunately just forgot that most sentient species in the galaxy are pretty irrational, prone to emotional outbursts and random acts of terrorism or freedom-fighting attacks, whatever you want to call them. So what about the New Republic and its policy of demilitarization? Well, Chancellor Mon Mothma has been called a pacifist by both her detractors and supporters. Demilitarization actually fits right into line with what one faction of the New Republic government really believes in. Now, we don't really get to see much factionalism in the New Republic until Mon Mothma steps down due to health concerns. But when she does step down, there's a clear split in the New Republic Senate. We have the centrist and the populist. The centrists generally hail from core worlds. They believe in strong regulations, more federal government, and large federal militaries. Some members of the centrist party were actually imperial sympathizers and kind of wanted to go back to how things were before. The populists, on the other hand, were mainly made up of former rebels who wanted limited federal government and more planetary rights. These individuals, like Mon Mothma, were very wary of what a large federal military could do to the New Republic. Remember, they just destroyed the Empire. They didn't want to replace one empire with another military dictatorship. The populists weren't pacifists, though. It wasn't like they were anti-military. As a matter of fact, populists like Senator Leia Organa would be called a warmonger for leading the fight against the First Order before the group had even revealed itself to the galaxy. Now, the populists believed that federal military funding should be redirected to local planetary defense forces, and there are actually a lot of good reasons for doing that. When you give member states more individual responsibility for self-defense, you'll start seeing smarter allocations of resources for defenses that are custom tailored to the specific needs of the system or planet. With less layers of bureaucracy and less federal oversight, the local defense forces had a lot more flexibility when it came to how they wanted to spend their funds on building a military force and how they wanted to outfit them and how they wanted to deploy them. This allowed each planetary system to come up with their own local defense strategies. The result was that federal money was now being spent on local vendors and local manufacturers, and also local individuals were being employed in these defense forces. Sometimes you could also run a part-time militia depending on the type of threat your planet faces. Sure, you won't get the same discounts you'll see with a massive military-industrial complex and massive production of vehicles, ships, and weapons, but you really don't need the type of massive ships the Empire fielded. I mean, a Star Destroyer probably costs the same as 1,000 smaller patrol ships. Those patrol ships could cover thousands of systems, whereas a Star Destroyer could cover only one. Federal government subsidies for local defense forces are quite important because the reality is, in a free market, anything worth protecting will be protected either through private means or corporations lobbying the government to provide protection. Rich planets, therefore, will have a huge advantage because they will actually be able to afford hiring the defense forces necessary to protect those resources. The planet of Quat, for instance, more or less saw stability throughout all of the major wars in the last few thousand years, and that was because of its ridiculous planetary defense force, which was made up of the largest dreadnoughts and battleships in the galaxy. And so these federal subsidies were really for, very remote areas in the Outer Rim where you might not necessarily have enough resources to actually defend yourself. These could be primitive or agricultural worlds that just don't produce enough wealth, but they still, of course, need to be protected from bandits and thugs. You'll also be replacing the Federal Academy system with locally trained soldiers and leaders who, again, are going to be highly focused on the role of protecting the local system. These individuals are constantly drilling different scenarios in order to understand how to defend their local planet or system from outside invaders. So instead of having core world officers come and take over with a bunch of troopers from the Outer Rim, now you're going to have locals fighting to defend their own planet, and they're going to be willing to sacrifice a lot more than any kind of soldier from another planet. The mistake that the Old Republic made was that they completely disbanded the federal military. The New Republic at least has a small token defense force, which is, hovering around Hosnian Prime. In a worst-case scenario, this force could have been deployed quickly in case there was an escalation in violence between member states or if some greater threat is detected. The federal military force in this case would function like a quick reaction force and immediately come to the aid of any planetary defense force that is being overwhelmed or attacked by maybe multiple enemies. The idea is to keep maintenance and costs low until you actually need your military force, and then when you do need military power, you can create a system to quickly integrate all of these different players under one flag. When the First Order attacked, there was almost no warning. All the commanding officers and civilian military leaders in the New Republic perished in that catastrophic mining accident that destroyed the entire Hosnian Prime system. It left planetary defense forces without any leadership, and they basically went to default mode, which is turtling. This allowed the massive First Order fleet to pick off worlds one at a time with overwhelming firepower. So the greatest failure of the New Republic was not actually demilitarization. Like any other program, demilitarization has great benefits and great disadvantages. The real problem was too many politicians chose to ignore the growing First Order threat on the edge of the galaxy. If the New Republic Senate had taken Princess General Senator Leia Organa seriously, they could have dispatched an expeditionary force into the unknown region and stopped the First Order from ever building up its forces in the first place. So there you have it, guys. That is why we think demilitarization isn't all that bad. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. And also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. Also, you guys can check us out on Facebook. We post a lot of random stuff up there. Anyway, guys, my name is Alan. Thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.